Hey, what's up, everyone? I am back again with another reaction, and yay, Lauren is back finally from vacation. Thank
Actually,
you very
joke's
much.
on you guys. This is Lauren's twin sister, Rebecca. So.
Sure, whatever you say, I'll agree with you. But yeah, how was Amsterdam? Tell everyone, please, because everyone's been asking for you.
Why are you sipping your coffee like you're like so sophisticated?
Because I can. It's my channel.
Excuse my hair, by the way. It's kind of like half down, half up. I was trying to go for a look. But...
Well, excuse my look, because I just kind of like, whatever. So, but yeah.
What am I answering?
How was Amsterdam, really quick? Give everyone
Oh,
a
yeah.
review.
So I went to Amsterdam, Prague, and London in like 2 weeks or so. Don't travel right now to a European country because flights are terrible. Like, it was impossible to get a flight. And like, there's so much tourists right now that they're actually reducing flights. Potentially, like next year, they're gonna start like cutting back on flights by 20% because there's just way too many people coming in and out.
Yeah, I heard about that. So.
And it's causing a lot of issues and low staffed in the airport. Like the Amsterdam airport, we had to wait in line for 3 hours and we missed our flight.
Yikes.
The line was 4 kilometers long, and that's about 2.5 miles. I'm not kidding. That's not even an exaggeration. Like, the line was actually that long. So, if you're, gonna go to the Amsterdam airport, get there like 5 hours in advance.
At least, yeah.
So.
But yeah. Anyways, thank you for the overview about your.
Oh, but it was
vacation.
sorry, that was a lot of complaining. It was a very fun trip. I enjoyed it a lot. Definitely check out Europe. Just be careful when you travel. Maybe avoid going right now.
Yeah, just a bit. But yeah, thank you so much for that. I'm so glad Lauren is back. And again, like I said, people have been asking for you because I've been alone in my videos. So we're finally back.
It's okay
and
to be
again,
alone.
but it's okay. Again, guys, I will try to upload as consistently as I can. Basically, anytime, us, we typically react to MrBallen. Every week. I can't talk. But yeah, I'm so glad.
Also, I'd like
Lauren's
to
back.
sponsor ice beverages today.
Once again. Yeah, and I just got the coffee today. I'm just
Sparkling
sponsoring
water.
coffee.
This is pretty solid.
Yes. So,
Please sponsor me. Thank you.
you wish. But without further ado, are you excited to hear or to see? You haven't seen MrBallen
Yes.
in a while.
What's this episode topic?
So today's is Malibu's Most Wanted.
Delightful.
Yeah. So, hope you are ready to get. I don't know
Her
what that
cat's
was.
doing something weird today.
Yeah. Digging through the bag or
What's he
something?
doing?
He or she or something. I don't know. I think Deli's
Wait,
over there.
Misty or Deli?
I think it's Misty because I think Deli's over there. I'm not really sure what.
Yeah, she's got a black cat named Misty and then a tabby cat
Yeah, gray white tabby. I don't know what.
named Deli.
Yeah, Deli. But anyways, hope you're excited for today's episode. You want to just get it right on in?
Nope. I just want to sit
Good
here
answer.
and stare at people.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good answer. That's valid. All right, let's just get on in. All right, let's.
On June 21st, 2018, an experienced outdoorsman packed up his 2 young kids and they headed out to this beautiful park in Southern California for a fun-filled summer weekend of hiking, camping, and adventure. Little did they know there was an evil presence lurking in that park. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange,
How much
dark,
would I
and
bet it's
mysterious
not?
delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, when the like button is at work, release a horde of angry emus into their house. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story.
Sorry, is there a way for me to like suggest a like button idea in the comments? Will he like say it?
You can try. I don't really think he just gets so many comments. He might just he might not see it. I mean, you can try.
Okay.
You can be like, hey, I've had an idea. Or,
What's your idea?
oh, I don't have one. I mean, I'm really not creative. I think you can come up with more things on the spot, really. But you will.
Put like fire ants in people's pants?
Sure. Wait, it's not centered correctly.
Oh, sorry, I moved it. Yeah, if you like this video, put fire ants in the like button's pants, please.
Oh yeah, please do. Anyways. I don't know what that was.
Or some squirrels, like in Phineas and Ferb.
Oh yes, that is.
On The morning of Sunday, June 17th, 2018, 35-year-old
say
Tristan Beaudette pulled his phone out of his
Oh, that
pocket
was
to check the weather
title.
forecast.
Oh, my bad.
Sunday, June 17th, 2018, 35-year-old Tristan Beaudette pulled his phone out of his pocket to check the weather forecast for Orange County, California. Orange County is this beautiful suburb located right between Los Angeles and San Diego. And this beautiful suburb is where Tristan and his wife, 36-year-old Erica Wu, and their two young daughters, aged 2 and 4, called home.
Aw.
And on this day, which was Father's Day, Tristan had gotten up early to check the weather to make sure it was going to be clear that day because he really wanted to take his family out for a fun beach day to celebrate his holiday. And he was in luck because when his app loaded, it showed that Orange County was going to be beautiful and clear all day. Although, even if the weather had come back as rainy and horrible and cold, Tristan was the kind of person who still would have wanted to go to the beach. Because for Tristan, anything outdoors was really awesome. That was his happy place, being out in nature.
you.
Whether it was
I'm so
going to the
happy in
beach or
nature.
going hiking or camping or just throwing
Okay,
a frisbee
let's-
around outside, he didn't care. If he was outside, he was good with it. And even though his daughters were still very young, they both already had totally fallen in love with nature just like their dad had, which made Tristan just so happy because now he had these two little sidekicks that would go with him on all of his outdoor adventures. As for Tristan's wife, Erica, she did love the outdoors, but maybe not as much as Tristan did. But that was okay with Tristan because all he would do is make little adjustments to his adventures to make it more bearable for Erica. Like whenever they went camping, Tristan would totally rough it in a tent right on the ground, but he would bring along a big full-size blow-up mattress for his wife. And this was something that Erica just adored about Tristan. Not that he literally waited on her hand and foot, but rather that Tristan just kind of went with the flow. If his wife wanted a blow-up mattress, that was fine. You know, it didn't matter to him. That was just who he was. He didn't judge people. He was at peace
Sorry,
with.
is it messed up that I thought he was gonna say blow up doll? I'm sorry. He said blow up something, so I just every time someone starts saying something, I think of something else.
He roughed it on the ground and she had a blow up doll.
I'm sorry. I know it's really messed up, but guess what? That's just who I am. Okay, I think of
Blow-up
weird
doll.
things.
No, this reminds me, when I went camping, I slept in the car. Not because I don't like camping, like that's the wrong idea. I slept in the car because my parents snore too much. Like you could hear them like a mile outside the tent.
Yeah,
So.
that's kind of why. Yeah,
I couldn't
So,
stand it, so I slept in the car.
Yeah. Well.
with the world. And in fact, it was that character trait that had originally attracted Erica to Tristan. Erica had met Tristan back in high school when some mutual friends had set them up. Tristan didn't have a date to a dance at his school, and so the friends were kind of like, Erica, go with him. And so Erica would agree to go. And on the night, she actually met Tristan for the first time. She's laying eyes on him for the first time. He was a sight to behold. The summer prior, he had sprouted up like 4 inches or so. So he's
Jesus.
super tall, but his body hadn't quite filled out yet. So he's super lanky looking, and he was totally overdressed for this dance. He had on this full tuxedo, and he was not remotely self-conscious. He was only psyched to have a date to this dance. And during this dance,
so cute.
Tristan would just totally rock that tuxedo in all of his gangly glory, as if this tuxedo was made for him. And he would really try hard to make sure that Erica had a good time with him, and she totally did. And so after this dance was over, the pair was inseparable. Erica would go on to study at Stanford and would become an OBGYN doctor. As for Tristan, he would become this wildly successful, widely published scientist with a patent related to vaccine delivery. However, in typical Tristan fashion, he didn't care at all about his resume. It didn't matter that it was completely stacked. I mean, on paper, this guy was just unbelievable. But Tristan never changed his personality. He never changed anything about himself. In fact, his scientist colleagues who adored him, they used to think it was hysterical that this brilliant chemist who was on the cutting edge of various cancer treatments and all this crazy research, that guy was actually this big mellow type person who wandered around the lab and started most of his sentences with, "Dude, By early afternoon on that Father's Day in
This guy seems
2018, Erica and Tristan and their two little girls had made their way to a local beach, and Erica had found herself sitting in a beach chair reading a book, and Tristan and the girls had set up a sunshade right down where the water broke, and they were digging in the sand. And so over the course of that afternoon, Erica, she's reading her book, and periodically she would look up and she would see Tristan and the girls digging in the sand or making sand castles. And then at some point, Tristan and the girls, they would get up and abandon their dig site, and they would run into the water, and then they would run back to shore right as the waves were breaking, trying to kind of escape the waves. And the two little girls thought this was so much fun, and they were laughing hysterically and screeching with excitement as the waves crashed at their
Yeah, it
ankles.
sounds
These are
happy. I
tiny
feel
little
like this is
waves.
gonna end horrible.
And at some point,
That's all
Erica,
it
she's
does.
looking up watching this, and she sees her two little girls having a blast, and she sees her husband flash her this big grin because he knows this is totally funny. And at that moment, Erica suddenly felt herself feel something that she didn't always feel these days, and that was just contentedness, happiness. Tristan, because he was this totally laid back guy, he was able to just kind of enjoy life as it came to him. But Erica, she couldn't do that. She was a constant worrier, and that was largely because when she was just 8 years old, she lost her father. And it was this totally traumatic experience that really upset her childhood. It was just devastating for the family. And so ever since then, she had developed this very real paranoia that no matter how good her life was, that at any second it was going to be ruined by something horrible happening to her. But as she sat in this chair, watching her husband smiling at her and seeing her kids playing with him, it was just this perfect moment. And so Erica would put the book down and she would get up and run into the surf to be with her family. Little did she know, something horrible was about to happen.
This always
isn't
makes
every
me
home in
mad.
the
I don't
US
even
just
know what it is
solar
yet.
power?
It's something.
The number
See,
one
it's
reason
always
is not
ruined.
about
Wait, do you have
sunlight or
ad
weather
blocker?
or even politics.
I
It's actually just
don't.
because
Oh
most
wait,
people
I
don't
probably
know.
skip it though. Sorry, what were you saying?
Do you have ad blocker?
How do you actually get that? Is that? I thought that was just part of. How do you do that actually? Do you just like download a thing for that, or like because I've heard that I've heard people tell me that before. I just don't exactly know what to do because.
So there's something on the top like taskbar of your computer that should say something about blocking ads, but I don't see it.
Oh, okay.
I don't really know anything about
how
like,
about this?
Apple.
Yeah.
I know how to do it on Windows, but I don't know a lot about.
Yeah, how about
apps.
this? I'll try to do figure that out sometime like before the next one, just so I.
Also, I thought you had YouTube Premium.
Oh, I do. Here's the thing, I do, which is
Oh.
I think maybe for some weird reason it's only when MrBallen's videos. I don't know why it shouldn't do that, but I guess maybe it's because it's part of his. Maybe he that doesn't remember he purposely puts ads in his videos.
Yeah,
So that's
I mean, a lot
why-
of people do though, and it shouldn't.
I don't know because I definitely do have YouTube Premium for sure. I just don't know. I mean, again, I'll find a way to fix that or just.
I
look
mean,
into
watching
that.
the ads might help him out. So I mean, it's,
Well, yeah,
it's not too
I
bad.
I typically skip the ads, but otherwise, I guess I'll just go.
4 days later, on June 21st, Erica was home studying for this big medical exam she was scheduled to take the next day. But at the house with her was her husband and her two little girls. And so the house was totally chaotic and loud, and it was obvious to Tristan as he looked over at his wife that she was really struggling to focus. And Tristan also knew that they were a week away from moving. They were moving to San Francisco. They had just put a deposit down on a house. They had some family up there, so it was a smart move to make. But they still had a lot to do for this move. And so Tristan's looking at his wife, knowing that, the stress levels have got to be through the roof for her. And so Tristan decided he would just take the girls and head out for the weekend to make sure Erica had the time and space she needed to prepare for this test and also just maybe to be alone and have some peace and quiet. And so Tristan made a couple of phone calls, and then after he was done, he talked to Erica and he told her that he had just made reservations at this campsite up in Malibu, California. Malibu is another beautiful Southern California town located about an hour and a half north of Orange County. It's where a lot of celebrities live. It's a very rich
kinda
part
worried
of
though,
California. And he tells Erica that he had made reservations in this campground that's out there, and that he had called his brother-in-law named Scott, who had two young kids himself, ages 3 and 5, and they were all going to go there together and spend the weekend at this campsite. Now, Erica was very thankful for her husband for being willing to do this because she did need the time and space to study, but she immediately was just concerned concerned about it because, Tristan, he would take the girls and go out on all sorts of adventures all the time, but he had never gone camping overnight without her there, and so her reaction was to worry about it. But Tristan, who knew his wife very well, told her, "Don't worry, I will take great care of the kids. It's a place that's totally public. It's an amazing campground. There's loads of people around. It's totally safe." And so eventually Erica was convinced. And so Tristan began packing the car with all the camping supplies and the kids' toys and the kids' bikes. And as he's doing that, and the girls are really excited about this camping trip, Erica still found herself thinking, I hope they cancel this trip, because she just couldn't help feeling like something bad was about to happen to them. But Tristan did not cancel the trip. And after the car was
Usually when you have that kind of feeling, you're correct on it. Like
which is
your
weird.
instinct, your inner voice.
Which is weird because it could just be like, how most people just overthink stuff, and it really is in the end just like, it's okay, they're just overthinking. But then it's like, how do you really know? It's just kind of like a 50-50 chance then. Just the chances of that, is it just really because you're overthinking or something you just know, you have an instinct? I don't know. I don't know.
It's tough to determine.
That is weird. No, but yeah, something always bad happens in these things. And it's just like, makes me mad before I even hear what's gonna happen, because it's like, oh wow, something happy is always ruined. Yeah. Either the twist is oh wait, this sounds really messed up. No, I'm not gonna say Tristan, like the husband, is like
he's a murderer.
Like because remember we've heard stories like with MrBallen,
where the one that you trust the most ends up being a terrible person.
Yeah, you never know. It could either be like the family got murdered, or just something happened with the family, or at least for true crime, MrBallen's.
Maybe the twist is that the dad is actually Malibu's most wanted.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm thinking. But also, you never know.
Like his wife doesn't know, but in his past, he's like done a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, you just never know. I'm kind of intrigued.
And so he seems like it's just like a cover up. Like the very chill, mellow attitude is just like to cover up all the stuff he's done.
Yeah. So you never know. Kind of intrigued.
Was all packed, and the girls had been tucked into their car seats in the back seat. Tristan kissed Erica goodbye and said he would see her in a couple of days, and good luck on your test tomorrow. And with that, Tristan hopped into the car, he backed out of the driveway, and Erica watched as he pulled up the road and headed north towards Malibu. After studying well into the night, Erica finally went to sleep, and then the next morning, she got up early because she was nervous about the test, she was anxious about her husband and her kids, and so she's up early and she's getting ready, and as she's getting ready, she hears a loud knock on the front door. She looks at her clock and she sees it's 6:45 in the morning, and there was no reason for anybody to be knocking on her door that early in the morning, maybe unless it was Tristan, but he wouldn't be knocking on the door, he'd just be coming inside. And so apprehensively, she walked out of her room and went to the front of the house, and then she opened the front door. Soon as
you're supposed to look through the keyhole first.
Yeah, I love how she's like
look first, like be cautious.
And it's funny because she's the one who's really always like worried.
I know,
so
and
out
she
of
just
every
freaking opens the door without
that's really
even
interesting that
hesitating.
she would do that. Yeah. Like for someone who is really worried, I'd be like, okay,
especially if she knows it can't be her husband.
Yeah, like I don't. Maybe they don't have a peephole. Maybe I don't know. That's just the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, but
even so, I would
feel
probably
like at least have like most stores have like a screen door, so you can at least open one door and then still have the screen between you and the person, and then you can kind of like peek out, or like they have like apartments have like a lock that like a chain that you can like peek through.
Again, I think it just depends. Depends
on the type of door. I guess.
Either she was just really not.
In the picture, that does not look like a front door. That looks like a regular door.
Well, I know, but we'll see. Hopefully.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Saw who was standing there. She knew something was wrong.
Huh? Wait. What did you say? I gotta go back. My bad.
My bad. I talked to you.
To the front of the house, and then she opened the front door. And as soon as she saw who was standing there, she knew something was wrong.
The cops.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, I bet it's the cop. I don't know, but it's another sponsor.
This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. Every day, I spend hours and hours poring over every little detail of one tragedy after the next.
Yeah, it kind of alternates between the three, right?
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
BetterHelp seems like a
I
very,
needed to prioritize my mental health, and so in 2020, I sought out a therapist on a highly reviewed online therapy platform called BetterHelp.
Sponsors, but gotta like
we support it, but
yeah, we do.
And then with and all of it is
kept video, so
exactly.
Help. Join the 2 million plus.
Okay.
Join it, guys.
BetterHelp.com/MrBallen. It's also linked below in the description.
Cool. All right.
Erica would later reflect on this moment when she opened the door. And even though it didn't make sense and it was irrational, she would sometimes think to herself, what if I had just never opened the door? Would this nightmare have really happened? But Erica did open the door, and standing out there was her sister-in-law, Priscilla, who was there unannounced. She lived an hour and a half away, and she looked very frazzled and upset. And she would give Erica absolutely heartbreaking news.
Oh, no.
News that was so earth-shattering that Erica literally couldn't comprehend it. Like, this cannot be true. There literally has to be a mistake. But there was no mistake. Erica would not take her medical exam that day. Instead, she would hop into the car with Priscilla and they would drive to Malibu. The day before, Tristan and his two little girls, after driving for about an hour and a half, arrived in Malibu at the entrance to the Malibu Creek State Park. Now, when most people think of Malibu, they just think of the beautiful properties lining the beach. They think of celebrities and rich people and exclusivity. And that's all true. But what a lot of people don't know about Malibu is that just outside of the kind of main Malibu area is this totally wild area, this very rugged terrain, all these canyons, all these heavily forested areas. It all kind of butts up against the outside of Malibu. And in this totally rugged area is where the Malibu Creek State Park is. So Tristan and Scott, they arrive at the gates of this park that leads into this wilderness, and they check in with the park rangers up front, and they are directed to their respective campsites that they had reserved. They had reserved 2 sites right next to each other. And all a campsite is usually is just a square little plot of land with nothing in it. And it's a place where you put your tent on, and sometimes there's a fire pit inside of it. It's really sparse. And so Tristan and Scott, they thank the park ranger. They drive all the way across the campgrounds. They get to their designated spots. And right away, Tristan's like, these are just not very good campsites. They were located right near the porta potties, so it kind of smelled bad, and there was lots of foot traffic right in front.
Yeah, that sucks, but you know, if you have to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, you don't want to have to walk like a mile.
No, I actually
to
don't.
the
Yeah,
bathroom.
I actually wouldn't mind. I mean, it's not the best, but at least you have a bathroom. I mean, I'd be like,
I mean, I guess I understand that the smell, the lack of
Yeah,
seclusion, like,
sure.
but at least you're in like, because he told his wife he like was like, hey, we'll be safe. We're in a public area.
Yeah, a public
and this way
area.
they're more public, so
Yeah.
nothing will happen.
Exactly.
Because around more people, less seclusion. That's actually potentially safer.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
We will see.
Front of their sites, and their site was kind of at a tilt too.
Oh.
So just overall, it was not ideal. And so
Oh,
Tristan
that's not
said this
the
to
best.
Scott, and Scott decided he would just go talk to the park rangers again and see if they could change their campsites. And so he went to the front, talks to the park ranger, and they say, no problem. There's actually 2 open campsites on the other side of the park. We'll just swap your reservation. And so Tristan and Scott and the kids, they make their way to these other 2 campsites, and these are perfect. They're kind of tucked up at
I feel like it's too good to be true, and they should have just stuck with what they had.
Oh, I know. I mean, that stuff always happens.
Yeah.
at the base of this huge canyon. There are no porta potties nearby, so no foot traffic. It's very private, and the
Where you
land
gonna
was
pee?
totally flat. And so the men are totally happy with this, and they start getting their stuff out of their vehicles and setting up their tents, and the kids are running around playing and riding their little bikes around. And then after their campsites were mostly set up, Scott and Tristan made a fire in the fire pit that was located roughly between where the 2 tents had been set up. And so Scott was sleeping with his 2 sons in his tent, and Tristan would be sleeping with his 2 girls in his
Random, how are
tent.
they gonna
And so they get
shower?
this big fire going, and then all the kids and the
Don't
adults,
shower
they
houses.
sit around the fire, and they start roasting hot dogs and making s'mores, which is marshmallow, chocolate, and graham cracker. And the dads are telling funny jokes and spooky stories too. And before long, the kids are just totally exhausted. And so Scott and Tristan both take their kids and put them to bed inside of their tents. And then after the kids are tucked in, the 2 men come back to the fire, and Tristan, who had packed pre-made cocktails, he pulls those out and he shares one with Scott. And then the 2 men just enjoyed each other's company, sat around the campfire, chatted for a while. It was mostly Tristan talking about his upcoming move to San Francisco, but Scott was happy to just listen. And then at some point, the 2 men were just totally exhausted, and they decided it was time for them to go to bed. And so they put out the fire. Scott would hug Tristan and tell him that he loved him, and then the 2 men would leave the campfire and go to their respective
cute.
tents. As Scott climbed into
might
his
be the last
tent
I
with
love
his
you,
2
though.
sons,
know.
he turned and looked out the open flap of his tent across the fire pit towards Tristan's tent, and he saw Tristan climb into the tent with his girls. And so after he sees Tristan get into his tent, Scott zips up his own tent, and he lies down, and within 10 or 15 minutes, Scott is fast asleep. Just before sunrise the next day, so around 4:45 a.m., Scott suddenly woke up. He thought
Mr. Ballen, can I just say you have the best placement of ads?
This
It's
is
sad.
a full 3 months of food
the-
without needing any refrigeration
Well,
or
I was gonna
special
say, okay. I'm gonna skip the ad.
Storage.
Survival food. Perfect for camping, guys.
Exactly.
He thought he heard a loud sound, but he couldn't place the sound. And so he's just laying there. It's still dark outside. And as he's kind of getting his bearings,
Is that a
he
gunshot?
realizes one of
Sounds like
Tristan's
it.
daughters is crying in her tent.
Oh,
Now,
She
this was
injured? Is
not
she okay?
cause for alarm necessarily, because Scott just thought, whatever she was upset about, Tristan would certainly calm her down any minute and she'd be okay. But as Scott was laying there with his two sons sleeping right next to him, Tristan's daughter just continued to cry. Now, Tristan was a famously heavy sleeper. And so Scott was thinking, okay, he just must not be awake. And so that's why he's not able to comfort his daughter. And so Scott would carefully
probably
get
just
up,
not
he'd
there at
unzip
all.
his tent, he'd be careful not to step on his sons. He went outside, and outside it's cold, it's dark, he cannot see inside of Tristan's tent. There's no windows on it. And so he just walks over, and by the time he gets to the tent, he can hear clear as day Tristan's daughter is still crying. And so Scott kind of loudly but still whispering says, "Hey, Tristan, wake up." But Tristan doesn't wake up. And so with Tristan's daughter still crying right on the other side of the nylon of this tent, Scott decides to just open the tent up and look inside. And so he walks around to the front of the tent, he unzips the tent, and he looks inside. Now, it's too dark, he can't really tell what he's looking at, but even with the minimal light, he could tell that Tristan was clearly still sleeping right in the middle of the tent. And positioned on either side of him was his 2-year-old daughter and his 4-year-old daughter. And from the looks of it, the 2-year-old was crying, and the 4-year-old, who was also whimpering, was doing her best to comfort the 2-year-old. And so
Aw,
Scott's
that's
looking in,
cute.
wondering what's going on, when
Siblings.
the 2 little girls, they turn and look up at Scott, and when they see him, they just start saying, "Wet, wet, wet." Now, Scott doesn't know what they're talking about. He's starting to get a little bit flustered because he
so
thinks something's
confused.
wrong. And so he reaches in and just starts shaking Tristan, saying, "Hey, wake up." But as soon as he did that, he could tell Tristan's not sleeping. Tristan is dead, and his 2 little girls are sitting in a pool of his blood.
Oh, that
Right
makes
before
sense.
Scott had woken up, someone who was standing near the
no.
campsite had fired a gun several times, and one of their bullets went into Tristan's tent and struck him right in the head as he slept next to his daughters. Roughly 2
God.
hours after Tristan was killed, Priscilla showed up on Tristan's doorstep to tell his wife, Erica, what happened.
Okay, that is such bad luck. The fact that the bullet happened to go in the tent and hit him in the head, like
Yeah,
the
I
chances of
mean,
that it
yeah,
happened to
that's-
perfectly just aim directly at him at the exact
Wow.
like lethal point and
Yeah,
like
that's-
not hit his daughter. Like that's insane. Like it
Yeah,
didn't even hit
that's-
his daughters.
Yeah, no, that's
That's just really terrible luck. Like that's
Yeah.
awful.
yeah, it's pretty bad.
Like the chances of that happening are so low.
Yeah, no, it's
That her little girls were about to grow up without a father, just like she did. This news absolutely destroyed Erica. A 42-year-old man named Anthony Rauda would be arrested and charged with Tristan's murder. Rauda had a long criminal history,
Of course.
and at the time of Tristan's murder, he was living illegally in this park up in the canyon nearby, and when he was arrested, he was in possession of a gun that was ballistically linked to the bullet that killed Tristan. His trial is still ongoing because Rauda keeps firing his defense attorneys, which delays the trial. While Rauda has said he's innocent, he didn't do this, his behavior in court so far has not made him look any more innocent. He has been so violent and erratic during the initial court proceedings that when he goes into court, they have to strap his wrists and his legs into a chair and put
my
what's called
gosh.
a spit hood over his head, which prevents him from spitting on people and biting people. Assuming he was the
animal?
shooter, that he was
He is an
responsible
animal.
Yeah.
for
Someone,
shooting
yeah.
Tristan, which most people believe he was, and there really is an enormous amount of evidence that supports this. But again, his trial is still ongoing. But if we assume he was the shooter, the theory is it was completely random. He did not know Tristan. He basically just fired his gun either intentionally into the tent or recklessly, and he just happened to fire into the tent. But either way, one of his bullets struck Tristan in the head and killed him, meaning Tristan was literally just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So
and
he
if
was
this
just a
case wasn't
psychopath,
heartbreaking
just did it for no
enough,
reason.
one more distressing detail is that this shooting was not the first shooting in or around this campground. In the year leading up to Tristan's death, there were an astounding 6 other shootings, 2 of which happened literally in the campground right where Tristan was killed. Now, none of these other shootings were fatal, but in all 6 cases, the shooter or shooters were never caught, and the Malibu police just kind of didn't investigate. It wasn't until Tristan got shot and
Remind me to
killed
stare
in
it
this
up in Malibu.
campground
Yeah.
that the stories
Serious.
of all these other shootings that never got solved came out, and people are looking on a map saying, wait a minute, there's all these shootings unsolved with a rogue shooter or shooters out and about right here, right over this campground, and we haven't shut down the campground,
Wow.
and we haven't told the public that there's potentially a uncaught shooter roaming around this campground. Why is that? Now, the answers to those questions we don't know now, but they will likely come out during Anthony Rauda's trial, where he's being charged not only with killing Tristan, but also for all of those other shootings. In the meantime, Erica has filed a $90 million lawsuit against several agencies, saying that her husband had no idea there was this threat of an uncaught shooter at that campground, and had authorities put any sort of warning up, Tristan never would have taken his kids inside of that park, and he would be alive today. Her lawsuit is still ongoing.
Well, hopefully she.
After watching our videos, people often approach me and ask, how can I help victims and their
this
families?
is where he goes
Well,
over
now we have a great answer for you. The MrBallen Foundation. The MrBallen Foundation
yeah.
is a registered 501c3 nonprofit that makes it as easy as possible for you to join me, my family, my team in supporting those whose lives have been most impacted by violent and heinous crime. We have already given $150,000 to
amazing.
victims
That's
and their
cool.
families, including a $25,000 donation made in Tristan Beaudette's name to the Experience Camps, which is a program for children who have lost a parent or both parents. Monthly donors to the MrBallen Foundation Honor Them Society receive free gifts and exclusive invites to special live events. But the real reward is helping to create a new ending for victims of violent crime. Go to MrBallen.Foundation and click on Get Involved to join the Honor Them Society today. If you got something out of today's episode,
That's so
remember we
cool.
also have a
That's another thing. Like when we're
So heartbreaking though.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Like he was
aside
such a
from
good guy. Like he was like hands down a great guy, and like
Mm-hmm.
didn't deserve that. That sucks.
And just again, wrong place, wrong time. I feel like if I was his, again, I'm not. There's no one to blame except for
And it's hard to put yourself in the shoes of the person
Yeah.
unless you know whatever.
it's just like I guess since because I worry a lot too, but I guess it is hard because it's like you can't be like, oh yeah, you can't go camping. I mean, because you
Yeah,
kind of have to live your life.
There's like a balance. You can spend your life worrying, but then not actually live your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you gotta let go sometimes and just like,
Yeah,
trust that things will be
but-
okay and just
yeah, but
do what you want to do. But
Yeah, but I guess in the end that just really sucks. So like you
just be
literally
careful.
that one time and then your husband dies.
yeah, what the
That
heck? If
sucks.
they had like past shooters, why didn't they have a notice?
That is
like,
stupid
notice?
though. Like I hope they're like it's
like,
just,
hey, warning! There have been active shooting on the
yeah,
site.
very nonchalant. Like I hate
Is it
how-
just because they want to make money and they don't?
Yeah,
care
yeah, that's what I'm
about
saying. Like
people's
people are
safety?
very people really don't care. That's what, especially like sometimes it depends on what department it is, but for police, like again, like MrBallen said, they didn't investigate it too much. They're like, oh yeah, they're just shootings, but they're not gonna at least put a warning up. That was almost like negligence if you think about
Yeah,
it.
it really was.
yeah,
like they
that was-
deserve to be freaking
sued,
like
for
have all
sure.
their money just taken away.
Yeah. So I hopefully I hope what was her name? The wife's name. I forgot her name. Sorry. But anyways, I really hope she got all that money and she was able to sue for her. And yeah, no, that's pretty sad, especially
It is.
like your parent and yeah, no. Hopefully the guy, whoever, I always forget names, he goes to jail for a long time. And that's all I have to say. But yeah, this is what makes me mad. Just people kind of being negligent and
Yeah, no, definitely. It's really sad to hear, honestly.
yeah. But anyways, hopefully you guys know that episode. That's another heavy one from MrBallen again, and yeah, I love his MrBallen, the Foundation Society. Like, that's pretty cool. That's awesome that he does that. So, all right. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to MrBallen, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.